So I got a couple of messages over this past weekend with a few fans that were not fans of me, fans of the Knicks, that were very unhappy with what some radio host had to say about Mark Jackson not getting the job and why he didn't get the job and so on and so forth. So I actually happened to be driving a lot this past weekend. I had a couple of commitments in Staten Island. So, and I live on Long Island. So I had a lot of time in the car. And this was fresh after the Knicks had hired David Fizdale. So a lot of the conversation obviously was whether or not the Knicks made the right decision in hiring Fizdale, and I guess who they could have hired. And obviously the two big names, maybe the bigger name was Mike Budenholzer. But there was an outcry for Mark Jackson, and what a couple of fans told me, and I kind of heard the same sentiment, so I do want to address it, is that they were upset that they felt as if commentators, analysts alike, were taking a very unfair approach to Mark Jackson, saying in essence that Mark Jackson could not have done what Steve Kerr did with the Golden State Warriors, and essentially creating reasons why Mark Jackson was not a good fit for this Knicks job. And I heard some of these things over the weekend, and I'm going to preface this by saying that, look, when you talk about Mark Jackson, especially in and around Knicks fans circles, you have to understand that Mark Jackson is a very dear figure when it comes to Knicks fans and when it comes to, fans of New York basketball. Mark Jackson he is the embodiment of New York basketball. He starred at St. John's, was a star with the Knicks. Um, there were many that wanted Mark Jackson to come back to play with the Knicks, or to coach with the Knicks rather, because they felt as if there was that connection there, and that he knows New York. He understands New York. He understands the Knicks. He understands what Knicks fans want. He understands, what this franchise has been through and, what it is that Knicks fans want to see. On the record, before Mike Budenholzer became a candidate for this job, I'm on record as saying that Mark Jackson was my pick to be the head coach of the Knicks. But when Mike Budenholzer became available, I looked at what he did in Atlanta. And I mean, we always talk about player development and being able to take a player and bring them to the next level. Well, Mike Budenholzer did just that. And there is no clearer example than that of Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr., when he went to Atlanta essentially was finishing school. It was graduate school for Tim Hardaway Jr. because he came back to the Knicks a better player, a different player, a more diverse player. And look, whether or not you want to attribute that to Mike Budenholzer or one of his assistants, the credit is going to go to the head coach. So Mike Budenholzer has that cachet. He has that track record. So again, once he became a candidate, once he threw his hat in the Knicks ring, he was my choice to be the Knicks head coach. But again, there are reports out there, and it's tough to really know what's fact and what's just, talk. But reports are that Mike Budenholzer was more interested in the Milwaukee Bucks job. And, for the record, what's wrong with that? I mean, you have an opportunity to coach Giannis Antetokounmpo and a playoff-ready team like the Milwaukee Bucks, who, Mike Budenholzer, he might take a look at them and say to himself, I can take this Milwaukee team and I can bring them to the level of the top-tier Eastern Conference teams. I can bring this team to the level of a Boston, of a Cleveland, of a Toronto. So if that's his desire, aspiration, then God bless. So look, whether or not that was the reason why the Knicks didn't decide to go in this direction or make a serious offer, I don't know. But that's a report. But getting back to Mark Jackson, what I had heard, and I'm not going to mention names, and I'm wondering if other fans had kind of sort of heard the same thing, and this is what had them incensed. The sentiment seems to be that the Golden State Warriors were not going to do what they have done under the direction of Mark Jackson. That Mark Jackson, and the exact quote that I heard was that Mark Jackson is someone that could get a team to the mountain, but not over the mountain. That he was not somebody that could that could elevate the Golden State Warriors to that championship level that they've enjoyed over the last few years. And as it relates to the Knicks job, that he was just not a good fit for this particular situation because of this basketball reason. And I think that's garbage. Because let's take it one by one. First, the Golden State situation. Mark Jackson crafted that team. He crafted a young, talented group and got them to where they are today. I'm not saying that, yes, that 100% he would have gotten them to win a championship. But what I am saying is that you never know, and you never will know. So to base that kind of assertion that Mark Jackson is or was incapable of getting the Golden State Warriors to a championship level, to me is an irresponsible take. It's a hot take because you know it's going to stir conversation. It's the kind of thing that's going to grab a headline, drive some clicks on a website, but it's not fact. Because the reality is you will never know whether or not Mark Jackson could have gotten the Golden State Warriors to that NBA title contender status or get them to the point where they win the NBA title. And the argument that I hear is that, well, when you look at Joe Lacob and the Golden State Warriors, hierarchy, they're very smart because they're Silicon Valley people, so they see things from a different perspective, okay? But that they looked at Mark Jackson and said to themselves, he's just not going to be able to get. How do you know that? Personality aside, personal life aside. It's tough for me to say this because when I think about Mark Jackson, I only want to think about a great NBA player, a great, and I mean just phenomenal NBA analyst, and an entertaining one at that. And to me, someone who did a damn good job with the Golden State Warriors in his, I guess I want to say, limited time as head coach. But we do acknowledge that there are reports that he had some very serious issues off the court. I'm just going to leave it at that because it's not fair for me to now make this conversation about his personal life when, again, the reasons given as far as whether or not he could have been a great coach or a championship level coach with the Warriors has nothing to do with his personal life. If the Warriors truly parted ways with Mark Jackson because, they felt as if what was going on in his personal life was just a bad look for the organization, or could have brought about unwanted drama for the organization, that is completely within their rights. It is understandable. But for any analyst to make it about his basketball acumen or his coaching ability is, again, to me, it's a very irresponsible take because it is a take that can never be proven. As far as whether or not he got snubbed for the Knicks job, look, if whatever was reported about his personal life is true, and you're the New York Knicks, and let's not mince words, the New York Knicks, ever since the Van Gundy era, have been a cesspool of drama, off the court, just comedy, if you want to call it that, and really not much more. Yeah, you had a flare up in 2012 with a 54-win season. Yeah, you had insanity the season before. But how much of the Knicks conversation before Carmelo Anthony arrived, essentially, and, okay, I'll take it maybe the year or two before that, when it really became about basketball again. But in between the Van Gundy era, what did you have? You had Isaiah Thomas, Anuka Brown Sanders. You had Stephon Marbury, which when he was first traded to the Knicks, it was one of the happiest, moments in Knicks history, right? Or Knicks fans history. Everybody's all going crazy. You're emailing one another, you're calling one another because that's how we used to share news back in the day. I don't even know if we were able to text back then, 2003, but nonetheless, it was a happy moment for Knicks fans. It was one of those holy crap moments that we just landed a superstar moment. That turned out to be an epic dumpster fire. The Allen Houston contract. These are the things that the Knicks fans have been conditioned to kind of go along with. That the conversation is not about the on-court product. It's about everything going on around it. It's about the owner. It's about the incompetence. It's about inefficiency. It's about, you know, sexual harassment cases taking place, in MSG. And if you're the Knicks and you're trying to really run a tight ship, if you're Scott Perry and you're just trying to keep it all to basketball and you have a certain vision for your team, you know what? Maybe you do look at what's going on in Mark Jackson's personal life as a potential unwanted distraction. And again, if that's the reason why, that or they just feel as if Mark Jackson just doesn't personally jive with them, whatever, then again, that's their prerogative. And I don't have a problem with that. Because, yes, in any job, and especially when it comes to the NBA, you do look at a coach's qualifications. You do look at a job candidate's qualifications as it relates to that job. But then you do look at, okay, what else do they bring to the table? And if they're bringing any potential drama, if they are just somebody that they might be difficult to work with, then those are certainly factors to consider when making a hiring decision. So if that's why the Knicks didn't hire Mark Jackson, again, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. But for anyone to say that he's not a good fit for this team from a basketball perspective, again, irresponsible. Mark Jackson had a very similar situation just a few years ago in Golden State. He took a young team, a team with a lot of raw talent, and he taught them how to play the right way. He taught them how to play defense. He instilled that culture of defense, that culture of accountability that, we like to throw around that word culture and accountability. And these are hard words, right? Because when you say it, people listen, people stand at attention. But that's what he did in Golden State. And there is no reason to believe that he couldn't have done that in New York. And if you don't believe that, you can't prove that because he has a track record of having done that, is my point. So, again, I think that sentiment did hit a sour note with a lot of Knicks fans. I know it certainly did with me, but I understand why the Knicks, chose to go in the direction of David Fizdale. They believe he is that voice that this Knicks locker room needs. They believe he is the coach that can craft these young players and elevate the level of their game. They believe he's the guy that's going to come in and, put his foot up somebody's ass to play defense. Whether or not they're right, time will tell. But at the end of the day, a coaching hire, you're going to go with your gut, but a lot of it has to do with whatever you're going to do to cover your ass. Because at the end of the day, you have to justify why you're hired a coach. You have to justify why you drafted a particular player. You have to be able to give reasons for that. So according to Scott Perry, he feels as if David Fizdale is the kind of guy that can come in and work with a Frank Ntilikina, work with a Kristaps Porzingis, see if there is more left to develop with Emmanuel Mudiay. See if he could take Trey Burke, who was a nice surprise last year, and make him consistently what he showed last year. They're entrusting David Fizdale to mold that culture. David Fizdale, and I uploaded this video on this channel, he had an appearance on ESPN's Get Up. Now, one of the most profound things that he said in that interview was that he wanted to make sure that MSG was a place that teams did not want to play at. Because he felt as if teams come in, they look at themselves as the Broadway act on MSG, that fans are coming to watch them. And he wants it such that teams do not look forward to coming to Madison Square Garden, and that fans are coming there to watch the Knicks and not because of who they're playing. Because he wants MSU to be an intimidating place. So again, look, David Fizdale is saying all the right things, and he said all the right things at the press conference. So from that perspective, yeah, you're off to a great start. Phenomenal. You've instilled some level of excitement with the Knicks fans. But when you hear some of the sentiment about why Mark Jackson did not get this job and how it may relate to his, previous stint with the Golden State Warriors, again, if you want to bring up his personal life, his personal values, some things that he may have said, um, that his personality might, if you want to consider it to be too old school, to be abrasive to some, then again, those things are all good because those are reasons why you wouldn't hire someone. But if you're gonna point to his basketball acumen, if you're gonna point to his ability as a coach, and categorically say that you don't think that Mark Jackson could have gotten that Golden State Warriors team to a championship level, or that he couldn't do what he did in Golden State here in New York with a young, raw, talented stable of players, then again, that is something that can and will never be proven. So what do you think? Do you think Mark Jackson was snubbed? Do you think he's getting a raw deal from some analysts talking about why he didn't get the job? Comment below. nickfm.com. The website is coming soon. I swear, I know I say that at the end of every podcast, but we're working on it. And once it's live, we look forward to having an exciting, interactive community with Knicks fans, having some intelligent Knick talk. And it's something that I personally cannot wait for. So stay tuned, nickfm.com.